Hello, everyone out in BeerCon land. I am now joined with Dr. Daniel Dresner, and I
Doctor,
just have to say,
it's professor these days. I'll have that.
Professor. All right. Well, you
I'll
got you
still
put
talk to you.
my people here. They've got my notes. They said, Doctor, let's call you Professor.
Second, get a new
First of
team.
all, tell us what you're a professor of, and tell us about your passion.
Right. Well, when the university decided to give me this honour a few months back, I was actually told, well, I should become a professor of computer science because it keeps it general enough, and I never have to specialise. And I think, well, as they used to say in Reggie Perrin, showing my age. I didn't get where I was today without talking about cybersecurity, so I'm quite happy to be called a professor of cybersecurity. I'm not sure whether the acronym necessarily works, but it's certainly better than a colleague of mine who went for Professor of Information System Security
Right.
when he got his when he got his business cards. But I just love the interaction. I mean, the underlying title that it says on my business card. I asked them for a job title which neither sounded silly and would fit on the business card, so they printed it very small. Um, so I'm the academic coordinator for cybersecurity at the university. But that basically means I have a wonderful time breaking out of the usual computer science and maths and get to talk to the psychologists and the engineers.
Right.
And forensic linguists are brilliant. I'm the new fanboy of forensic linguists now.
That's amazing. And you're at the University of Manchester, and you've been doing this now for how many years?
Well, the pure university stuff. This is my 15th year. This is my
Right.
15th year. Prior to that, I was at the National Computing Centre, and I used to go to an industrial liaison panel and bang the table and say, "Where's security on the timetable?" And they kind of rummage through some stuff and find it was about an hour on a Tuesday afternoon
Gotcha.
in November. And eventually, a lovely lady called Alex Walker, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore, phoned up and she said three things. She said, "There's a hole in the timetable. There's a lot of people on sabbatical, so they couldn't fill it. And most importantly, for my masters at the National Computing Centre, they had some money. So they sort of seconded me or hired me out. So I used to go in just a couple of times a year to teach my modules. The building, which I think I'm not sure how well you know it now, Ian, but certainly it took me 8 years before I turned the right way at the top of the stairs and had to do this kind of long figure of eight round the two quaddy sort of
I
layout
I
again.
know I know it well, and let me just kind of talk a little bit about how awesome it is that you reach out to the industry to bring in folks to lecture to your master's students. Tell me a little bit about why you chosen to bring in sort of these industry people.
Well, I couldn't do it. I don't think I could do it any other way. I mean, my success is that I've been blessed with having a foot in industry, and then eventually tiptoed into academia. I mean, I've just found a school report recently which says that Daniel is not strong academically, and they may still be right about that. So I think the great thing about this job is and that's back to the academic coordinator side of stuff, is recognizing that, yeah, I could probably write down some real fanboy names of people who I think really do know everything. But on the whole, it's the way that people specialize
Right.
and the way that those people who specialize, who understand that they have a particular view, and they're prepared to share it and they're prepared to collaborate and cooperate. So rather than me talking generally about stuff that I've touched and had connections with beyond my own experience, I just think there is nothing like bringing in somebody who has who has sweated, they've seen their blood pressure go up a little bit. I mean, some years ago, I think I always say that the UK got interested in infosec back in 2008 when the child benefit discs went missing, and I was being interviewed because I was, not because I was me, but because I was had a big mouth about these things, and worked at the National Computing Centre. So it was always good to get a quote from the National Computing Centre, and person who was interviewing me said, "Well, I suppose you wouldn't give that person the job." And I said, "No, far from it. I certainly would give the person who'd lost those discs a job on the basis that they'd experienced it, as opposed to the rest of us who just live in fear, put in the controls, and hope that it's going to work."
It's a really good observation, and we've seen the question kind of go around of, would you hire a CISO that's been through a data breach, or do you want a CISO that's never had a data breach? And it seemed to be to come out of the other end that the CISO that's been through a data breach is preferred in that they have that experience of being in the hot seat. Now, you are force generating master students um, in information security, graduating from Manchester University, which is pretty prestigious,
Not too shabby.
um, not too shabby at all. What do you see the master student equipped to do in the industry?
I think the biggest thing that we bring is just that is actually just a general change in attitude. I mean, we have generally about I get about probably about 100, averaging out about 100 students a year now. I used to get more, but too many of them have been entranced and go wandering zombie-like towards anything with saying AI on it.
Yeah,
Um, with a bit of luck, they might do cyber stuff and AI if the timetables don't clash. But what I'm trying to do essentially is to create a fifth column of
right,
people, some of whom will be out there, doing, well, call it pure cyber stuff. They'll be, they'll get a career in cyber. Other ones who might actually be the ones I'm more interested will be embedded doing whatever role they are. With the
right,
cyber stuff at the back of their mind. Some years ago, actually, when we were getting loads and loads of students, we'd get a couple of hundred students on these modules, well, all the modules together, which have a kind of a cyber label. One of my colleagues, who had slightly more hair to tear out than I've got, was obviously was looking at the marking side of stuff that we do because, okay, the timetables are nicely laid out so the students have time to take things in, but it's all the sudden rush at the end when they do their coursework and and the exams in to actually get feedback to them and get the marks out and all of that kind of stuff. The traditional university challenges. And she suggested that maybe we should have some entry criteria, some strict entry criteria, which would mean that we'd already cream off the very best students in the first place.
right.
And I said, well, that's very nice. And obviously, school, I mean, this is the whole league table schools business, of kind of, going through too many formulas and coming out with things that look nice and shiny in the numbers department. But I said, no, I didn't want to fail anybody, and I never do. And I hate the responsibility of marking because you've got, you've got a paper in front of you, and somebody's life could pivot on a mark, and sometimes it's very difficult. There's just nothing there worth marking. It's very sad. But I said, I'd rather people came on these modules, got some sort of inkling, some sort of understanding, which might not necessarily sink in just then. And certainly, some people come in probably expecting to be given a hoodie and to do something like hackers
Y-
or sneakers or war games or whatever.
Yeah,
And they're probably very disappointed with me because my main focus is about risk and governance.
right.
So I'm trying to teach them to see, to see the bigger picture and not lose sight of the objectives,
Hmm.
and for themselves to recognise that they need to call areas of expertise. So my idea is that there will come a time when somebody might be out there. In their organization, might be just in their family situation, and they will make the right decision. They will make that little bit of improvement that will, allow them to, well, it's one of the D's, is it deflect, deny, possibly deceive, destroy, essentially stop an attack, or at the very least reduce its impact.
All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us an overview of where you're at with the master's program. And I mean, your contributions are going to be felt for the years ahead for sure. And so, thank you very much